Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Women of Grace broadcast, our monthly special that we do every month. And we thank you for coming back to visit with us. We have a good program this evening for you, and I am so glad that you tuned in with us. Tonight, we're going to feature Dr. Gloria Johnson. Dr. Gloria Johnson, she's a trailblazer. She's a pioneer in domestic violence. And we're just so glad to have her on this evening, this last Thursday of the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And what we're going to do this evening, we're going to talk to Dr. Gloria Johnson. We're going to hear her story, and then we're going to have an ad that's going to come up. Feel free to put questions in the chat box, and we will address those. I want to introduce her before we begin. Dr. Johnson has been very instrumental in Women of Grace. She initially helped us get our foot off the ground. She helped us with our startup program. She trained me and some of the other advocates in the organization. Dr. Johnson has been in this working field for 27 years, and we applaud her because it's not easy. She originally started in her basement at her home because of her interest to help women. She went from there to the Northland Medical Center. She worked there for years until they shut that down, and then she went to her current location in Ferguson. Dr. Johnson, we're so privileged to have you and to hear your story tonight. Feel free to just be yourself, tell your story, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions along the way, so I know that you can answer those. Dr. Johnson, go ahead with your story.
Good evening, Sister McQueen. And I thank you. Huh?
I can't hear you, Dr. Johnson.
I thank you. Am I mute? No.
Let's see. Can you unmute? You're on mute.
Unmute. She's not muted.
See a microphone that has a line through it?
She's not muted.
Click on that.
I'm not muted. Okay. Can you hear me now? Gloria. Okay.
Dr. Johnson, you're not muted.
Do you see the microphone with the
go
line
ahead and keep talking.
it?
No, I'm not muted. Okay. I thank Gloria for inviting me to be a part of her program. And earlier she was telling me some of the things that I had done to help her. But when you've been doing things for 27 years, sometimes you don't remember all of the things that you've done. And so I was sharing with her as we were talking on the telephone how that as a teenager, I would read True Story, True Confessions, and I would read these ladies' stories, and then I would try to help my friends, not knowing that this was leading me on a road toward counseling and toward assisting women that had problems. But when we started Life Source Consultants, it really wasn't supposed to be a domestic violence program. Life Source was really supposed to be a counseling center for Christian women. And I had this whole picture, this little glamour picture of Christian women coming together, and we would have all these Christian books, and we would work through our issues. Well, that was not the plan. And so I ran into, somehow I ran across a booklet that I have never seen since. And in this booklet, there were the names of all the different programs in the state of Missouri that were working with women. And so I sent letters out to find out what these programs did. And I got invited to a meeting, and the meeting was a group of women that were working with victims of domestic violence. I also got a call from the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence about what it was I wanted to do. And the young lady there, her name was Becky. And Becky said, well, I'll send you a booklet that we have. It was called The Little Blue Book. She said, and just set your program up according to these guidelines. She was under the impression that I wanted to do a domestic violence program. I had never heard of domestic violence. I mean, I saw it as I was growing up because I grew up in Puerto, and we had some men that would beat their wives every Friday night or Saturday night. But during that time, nobody called it domestic violence. Everybody just ignored it. So when I set the program up, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I'm not telling anybody to ever do that again because you can wind up in a lot of trouble. But it just so happened that I did have the favor of God, and that was His plan for me. The well, really, Colleen now is the CEO, and she's retiring the end of December. And if it had not been for her, I don't think I would have ever gotten as far as I did. She was there to assist me with any questions I had, anything that I wanted to do. I didn't have a clue of what you do to help a woman that's a victim. I did not know about resources, referrals. I had to learn that. And in learning it, what I found out, you don't learn it all from books. You can read books. I have a whole bunch of them behind me, and a lot of them are dealing with domestic violence. But what I've learned from the women that I've worked with. And that has been the most exciting. If anybody asks me if I've lived my dream, I have to say I've been blessed to live my dream. I've been able to help women, not on my own accord. I have great staff that work with me, that help, but just to see women that have come in one way and months later, you see them and they're totally different. We've assisted women to be able to get their children back because they were in a domestic violence situation and the state is taking them away. We've assisted women leave St. Louis for safety, basically on the bus. We did have one woman that left in her car and she talked to us from here to Arkansas. And I think that's a 6 hour drive. And so we were able to encourage her as she kept going. And she was afraid, but she was heading to her parents' house to drop her children off and then come back here to deal with it. And so one of the questions that I still get after 27 years is, why does she stay? Everybody don't have the courage to jump up and leave. I wish they did, but for some women, leaving is more dangerous than staying. It means their lives. And most of the time, when you run into women that are in a domestic violence situation, they have very low self-esteem. And so, if you don't feel good about yourself, you don't have the courage to leave. Many times when people find out what I'm doing, the first thing they want to know is, was I a victim? And I have to say, no, I was not. I have one of the greatest husbands in the world. He backs us 100%. He's been behind our source ever since I started. And so for me, I had to really learn what it was like to be a domestic violence victim. Even though we saw women get abused when we were growing up, it still did not teach me how to deal with them, how to help them. And so I've learned from my clients. We've used videos, we've used CDs, we've used TD Jakes, and we've used Creflo Dollar. So we've used Christian men, pastors, and leaders to help us. And we've also used non Christian. We put it together. Somehow, God has put it together because we don't know how. We will try and we can mess it up. But I'm just thankful that I've been able for 27 years to make a difference in the lives of women and to let them know that we were not created to be abused. That's that's not love. And when you think that that you're being loved and you're being abused at the same time, that is really not love. So if we can get women to understand that, and if we can get men to understand that loving her means not to abuse her, if we could get the men really involved with us to help educate other men about how to treat their wives and their girlfriends. And so when you have that, then you can break that cycle. Within the African American community, what I found out was that a lot of things that I was told in the beginning did not work because our men are totally different. They're raised different. We're taught different about working with our men. And because of so much abuse over the years by the police, by the law, by companies on their jobs, we as African American women have been taught to protect our men. And so, therefore, we don't turn them in like we should, or we won't walk away from them like sometimes we should, because we feel like somebody has to be there to take care of him. Somebody has to help him because he needs help. And so, one of the things we do when we work with our clients is to try to get them to understand what a healthy relationship looks like and what it doesn't look like. And for the Christian woman, when we look at it, we try to teach them, even in respect, how to respect their husbands, but how they're not a shoe to be walked on. And because he's in charge, there is a certain way to be treated that God wants them to be treated. And so I learned from sitting under Joyce Meyer years ago what submission was and what submission was not. And so I had to learn how to be submitted to my husband as a Christian woman and still be the woman that God created me to be, how to create that balance. And so I have to always ask God how to create that balance in different situations because I'm in an executive position. I have to remember when I'm at home, I'm still an executive, but God did make my husband head of my household. So there are things that we learn and we try to teach the women that we work with so that they're not walked on and so that the next relationship they get involved in, that they get involved with someone who really, really loves them and who cares about them and knows how to treat them. One of the other reasons that a woman doesn't leave is because she doesn't want to go into a shelter. And so if she doesn't go into a shelter, where is she going? In my house, I have three sons, but they're all adults. My grandchildren are adults, so I still have great grandchildren that are small. But how many of us, if we had even our daughter that moved back home with three, four, five small children, and we love them dearly, after 3, 4, 5 weeks, we want them to move into their own apartment. And so that's what happens with women when we say, well, just leave, go stay with a relative. She can't just always do that. And I'm like them, I wouldn't want to go into a shelter either. And so I can't sit up and say, okay, yes, I'll walk away and just go into a shelter because I don't know that I would do that. And so a lot of times she stays because she has those children and she doesn't want to just go anywhere. And then there's that promise of change. You know, when any of us do anything wrong, and when you think about children, when they do something wrong, how they apologize and they're not going to do it again, that's the way an abuser is. Behavior. When children grow up in a home where there's abuse, then that's what they learn to do. They learn how to, young boys learn how to talk to their wives, their girlfriends, from the way their dad talks to their moms. Girls learn how to accept what men say from what their mom has accepted from their dad. And so it's learned behavior. We grow up and we hear that, we learn it, and we just accept it. Some women, there's a fear of death. And as we know, over the past few months, we've had a couple of domestic violence situations where women have lost their lives. And then that's when people say, well, why didn't they stay? Why didn't they leave? They didn't have to, they could be alive if they had left. And so we have to understand that there are reasons why they stay. But the one key thing I would like to say to you is that if you know someone that's being abused, be their friend, be there for them, love them, encourage them, help build up that self esteem. Let them know that you will be there with them if they leave. If they stay, you will still be there with them. Don't desert them. That's the worst thing we can do for someone that's being abused, is to desert them, because then they don't have anyone. They don't have a partner. And the other type of abuse that we don't understand, we all understand physical. We see the scars, but there's such a thing as psychological abuse that a lot of us don't realize is there. And that is that's mental abuse, emotional abuse, and verbal abuse. There was a young man a couple of years ago that would always make fun of his wife in front of other people, and he would laugh. He thought it was so funny. And he just happened to do that one day in front of me. And I looked at him real serious and said, "That's not funny." Because sometimes we think making fun of people that we're just having fun, but that is a form of abuse. And you can hurt people feelings like that. And the biggest one is when you're dealing with mental abuse, mind games. I had a young lady once that called me about midnight and told me she was losing her mind. And it was because her husband played mind games with her. What he did was he would move things around the house, wherever she put them. And after a while, you start thinking, well, maybe something is wrong with me because you can never find anything. Well, it just so happened that was what he was doing. And so we had to work with her to help her understand that she was being mentally abused by her husband and he was playing mind games with her. The last one that I want to say is economic abuse. I got a call one day from a woman that I've known for years, and she's a retired I'm not going to say what her field was, because she just might be listening, or somebody that know her might be listening, but she's retired and she has no idea where her retirement check goes. She doesn't get a dime from it. And she was explaining that to me. Well, she's been with her husband about 45 years. So for me to say, okay, then what we have to do is we have to do some changes so you can get your retirement check. After living with him 45 years and he's controlled all of that, that's not going to change. She doesn't know how to uh, work with her money because she never had to. And so I have not yet, and if anybody out there has an idea, I have not yet come up with a way to work with her. We've done it with some other women, but because of her age and the length of time she's been with him and the length of time that he's controlled all of that, um, it would be hard for her to make it on her own. We will have to work with her for quite a while to build up that self-confidence that she would need in order to control her money and to take care of everything. And also with economic abuse, I had a woman in a support group in the very beginning when I first started Life Source, whose husband made her lose her job, and she had moved here from California, and he sabotaged her job. He would call her job, and when she wasn't supposed to get calls, and there were a lot of things he did, and nobody believed her. And so we worked with her and got her to build up her confidence. We got her supervisor to understand what some abusers do. And her job, fortunately, did begin to work with her so that she could keep her job and do her work. And so what the only thing I have left is for domestic violence, we could go on for hours, and I got 27 years of stories, you guys. So if you want to hear some of them, I do have a book that I forgot about that I have written, and you can always give me a call. We can send you a copy, and that will also help. And if you know anyone that is being abused and you want to know how to help them, you can call our office. Gloria, can I give them the number?
Sure, please do.
Okay. You can call our office. Our office number is 314-524-4130. Our crisis line, if you're in a crisis, is 314-524-8686. I think. I just forgot it. So chalk that up to my age as a senior. But you can always give us a call and we will answer any questions for you. We will assist you in any way that we can, because that's where our heart is. I have great staff. They will love you and you will love them. So thank you, Gloria, for giving me this opportunity to just kind of ramble on about domestic violence and what we do.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And I'm sure you could ramble along quite a bit with 27 years of experience. I do have a question that I want to ask you.
Okay.
You've encountered quite a bit in your experience with domestic violence. How would you describe, or how would you define some of the symptoms of a toxic relationship? How would you know the relationship is toxic? You know, some people are in a relationship and it's going all bad. What are some of the symptoms we should look for, or they should look for?
It really depends on the environment,
Okay.
because abuse is put on good fronts, and nobody would believe that, especially if it is toxic. They would never believe that he would say or do anything wrong, because when he's around other people, he's that loving boyfriend, that loving fiance, that loving husband. And you have to kind of listen to your girlfriend, your cousin, your sister, whoever she is. You will have to kind of listen to her when you're just in a general conversation about what goes on at home, or if you're in a conversation about, say, going somewhere together, and she can make that comment, I don't really hang out with my friends, with my relatives too much, because my husband told me he loves me so much, he just wants me to hang out with him. And we know that that's not correct. But if you're told that, and you tend to believe it, you don't know that you're being isolated, and so they're just, you really, that's kind of hard to find out about unless you really know the victim really well.
Mhm.
You won't notice it if you're just out, but I know a person that I talk to them quite a bit. And over the last couple of years, even with what I do, I didn't pick up on it until I was told by another person. I was talking to them about this young lady, and I said, when I talk to her, her husband's always listening, because the phone is on speaker.
Mhm.
And so when I mentioned that, we started talking about it, and we realized, we went back all the years that she's been married to him. She doesn't go anywhere by herself unless she's going to work. So it's all in, you have to be very observant,
Mhm.
because just in that, because if he's in a conversation with me and her, and he's being really nice and sweet, and that's all I ever see, I won't think about that unless I go back to what I know about toxic relationships and what I know about control. But
Mhm.
sometimes you don't think about it. So it
Mhm.
pays to be very observant when you are dealing with, especially your sisters, and just kind of listening to
Mhm.
what goes on. You can't ask them about their relationship because you're being nosy. So you have to really kind of listen.
Yeah. You know, I asked that question because a lot of times people are in a relationship and they don't realize it's toxic. So I'm glad you said that the control factor was one of the main things. And sometimes people think he just loves me. He's just checking on me 5 times a day. Oh, he loves me. He wants to see what I'm doing. But really, it's a controlling factor.
It is.
And sometimes, people don't realize it in an intimate relationship or in a marriage. That's what's going on. Gloria, I really appreciate you. I tell you, you've done a wonderful job explaining a lot of the things that we want to talk about. And I like to say one of the things that you mentioned about the elderly abuse. A lot of times we don't talk about elderly abuse and elderly neglect. It's going on. It's happening a lot with baby boomers because they have children that's trying to take care of them. So elderly abuse, can you just talk to that just a little bit? Neglect, you know how they take the money, they take the check also and do what they want.
All the money. I know that I know one person, and what their son did was their son went to the ATM with their ATM card every day and spent their money. And when it's an elderly woman, normally they're not going to do much because they feel like they can't survive without that person that's taking care of them. Our oldest client was 75. And when we met her, she was 70. And she told us one day how her husband took her by her feet and pulled her out of the bed.
Oh my gosh.
And so where was she going though at 70? You know, because your children are all grown. A lot of times they don't believe that their dad is being abusive to you. And so that is a very, that situation is very, very delicate. And so what my suggestion is that if you know someone that is, you will have to be that person to really watch very, very closely, be able to make other people aware of what's going on so that you're not the only one that know. You can also contact the senior programs, and you can let them know that, you know, there is this elderly man or woman, because we do have, and when I talked about abuse, I forgot to say we do have men that are being abused also, and they don't tell because they feel like then people will think that they're not a man. But for the elderly, you will need to report it. But I can tell you at this point, even in reporting it, if they come out to check it, she's going to deny it. You find very few elderly women that will admit that they are being abused, especially by their children. And so we've seen a lot of that. I wish I had an answer for it, but I really don't. I would love to, you know, and if I find out one by next year, Gloria, we can come on and tell everybody, uh, you know, really the best way to be able to help. But our client, she stayed our client. We just kept encouraging her, building up her self-image, letting her know that she was loved outside of her home. And she has passed now. She passed. And so, but was not happy. There was nobody that could help her because she wasn't going to leave her husband. And when she put him out that one time, he set the garage on fire. So he was hoping that it would connect up to the house and burn her up, in which it did. And so that's one of the things I definitely don't have an answer for. I wish I did.
Yes. You know, while you're on here, we're talking about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But I also want people to know that this is also Cancer Awareness Month as well.
Yes.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, if someone could send me a chat, it's also Alzheimer's Awareness.
It is. It is.
And so, and a lot of those things impact our families, and a lot of things are going on in our families. I read somewhere where cancer was so bad in the 9 months of COVID last year. During the same 9 months where COVID was about 350,000 people had passed. Cancer people or cancer deaths was about 450, but that's not, it's different types of cancers. So COVID, cancer, those are all things that we're going through right now. Do you think that COVID has really impacted families as far as domestic violence is concerned? Because, we all have to stay in that same house. And at one point, we weren't allowed to leave, and there was a curfew and everything. Do you think that it had an impact, or there was more abuse going on there?
I think there was. One of the things was a lot of the women could not call for help because the abuser was also in the house with them and monitored everything. One of within the domestic violence arena right now, I think all of our telephone calls are down because women are not able to call the way that they used to. They don't have that freedom because everybody is in the house. If they do go to work, they go to work and they come back home. So everybody's at home together. So it has made that difference. It also has increased the abuse that the women are going through because the abuser is in the house. And so she gets abused even more. And we've had some women that have managed to call us, but they'll call us, then they'll have to call us back because depending on where he is in the house, the shelters are full. And so for a lot of the women right now, there is nowhere to go unless they have a family member where they can go and stay with their children. But because of the pandemic, then that people are a little bit leery on that, except for moms and dads to let you come home.
Right.
If they have some room, for that. With our clients, we work with them over the phone mostly. Our clients are just now starting to come back into the office where we can work with them one on one. So it has made a really, really big difference. We've put up a couple of clients in motels that have left so that they can be safe. And so we all are just kind of feeling our way through on what's working, what isn't, what can we do. And I think it's just stressful on everyone. One of the blessings though that we do have is that for the women that have left, and they are providing the housing program is still in place where they can apply through the sexual assault center at the Y, where they can apply for other housing. And so we've been able to do that resource for our clients, try to get resources for them so that they can have furniture when they move. So we've got some clients that have managed to move into other housing and be able to get out, but not a lot of them. The pandemic is really making a big difference.
Yeah.
For those that have gotten out, the state has provided some funding for assistance for them for their first month's rent, their deposit, or if they were able to get their husband or boyfriend out of the house, we've been able to assist them with utility assistance and rent and food. And what we've done for food is one of the staff uh, she orders the groceries for them. They talk to them to find out what they like, what they want, and we've ordered groceries and had it delivered to them. So
Wonderful.
it's been a challenge to
Yeah, it's been a challenge. I
yes.
just want to say to anyone that's listening or watching, if you have a question or a concern, you can go to our website, which is www.wogww.org. That's Women of Grace Worldwide.org. And we will be happy to answer and respond to any questions or concerns that you have. I don't know if you know Tania Kane, Dr. Johnson, but she was with us at MCAGSV at one of the conferences some years ago. I'm proud and happy to say she will be coming back to St. Louis on November the 20th. And we're going to have her at the Hilton Airport, St. Louis. And she's going to have 2 sessions. She's going to have that morning, she's going to do a training session for advocates. So if anyone is on here that's watching, that's an advocate that works with the domestic violence program, you're definitely welcome. She's got a training session going on. It will be a continental breakfast from 9 to 12. So we invite the advocates and also clergymen. We invite clergymen. Clergymen need to know when they're held accountable.
Yes.
And they can be liable personally and the church. So it's going to be some wonderful information given out that day. She's going to talk about the do's and don'ts. She's going to talk about trauma-informed care. She's going to talk about what she calls the RICH, rich approach. So I'm anxious to hear that in her training. Like I said, from 9 to 12, session 1 is going to go on. And you can go to www.wog.ww.org. That's womenofgraceworldwide.org for more information on how you can register. It's going to be awesome. Also, the second session she's going to do that day is from 2 to 4, which is open to all people that have experienced trauma. She has an awesome testimony. I don't know if you remember it or not, but her testimony is really awesome. And she's traveling. Now she's just getting back from California. I don't know if she wasn't able to call in today, but she's traveling and she is telling everyone about the fact that although you go through, there's healing after the trauma.
Yes.
And so we're glad to have her to come to St. Louis. That will be on November the 20th at the Hilton St. Louis Airport Hotel. Gloria, I hope you can make it.
I was just thinking about that. I would love to come.
So we want
also what I was thinking is for any clergy, anyone that's involved in ministry to come, because they will have information on what to do if someone in their congregation is in an abusive relationship. Then they will learn how to help the whole family, because sometimes it's not always about just splitting up and the wife leaving or putting the husband out. There is help for both of them where they can keep their family together sometimes. So I think ministers can learn how to do that.
And it's very important because, as you know, advocates like ourselves and clergymen are first responders. When people get in trouble, who do they go to? They go to their pastor. And when they're in a domestic violence situation, they call us or they call the police or, so we're first responders. And so we need to know how to respond appropriately because domestic violence is real and it's happening. It doesn't discriminate against age, sex, or race or anything, so it's real and it's happening. So we need to get well informed on how to handle situations. We will also have subject matter experts that will be able to respond to questions of concern, like what if, that kind of thing. So we'll have therapists, licensed counselors. We'll have, I like to say, my new friend, Judge Marvin Tier Jr. will be there. We'll have other counselors, there as well. So we're looking forward to it. We're looking for an informative session for advocates and clergymen. And that, as you say, ministers, anyone in a leadership spiritual role, they need to know how to respond and respond in a way that it is not hurting to the person. I always say that if you're hurting from something that hurt you and you don't get healed, you're going to bleed on other people. So, Gloria, thank you so much for coming and being with us. We
welcome.
appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And we just want to say to our watchers and those that are listening, we're going to end up with the video on Tania Kane, but we want to tell you that we will be there in November at the Hilton Airport. In December, oh my gosh, you want to listen, you want to be available, because we're going to have a roundtable discussion by therapists. Good. They know some stuff, and they are, they're going to be talking about what people need and how they can get the help that they need. And I want to give it our crisis line number, 314-652-2572, or go to wogww.org. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your 27 years. 27 years. Oh, my gosh. That's wonderful. And just think of all the work you've done and all the people that you've helped.
I don't know. When I think about that, it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, it can. But you've done it. And I'm sure the time passed fast. And I'm sure there was some ups and downs for you, emotional things going on. But I'm sure you've helped a lot of people and started them. Like you said, the lady that talked to you all the way to Arkansas, she was on the phone. That's, those kind of things people recall and they remember. And I just want to say, from one advocate to another advocacy organization, thank you very much for the work that you've done in the community.
And thank you for really touching the Christian community, because that is an area that we really need information flowing into. So I thank you also. So
all right,
it goes both ways.
Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in with us this Thursday. We'll see you hopefully on November 20th at the Hilton Airport Hotel. Don't forget, go to wogww.org. God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This was in 94. At this point, I was homeless, sleeping beneath a bridge, eating out of a trash can. I couldn't go in anybody's house.